Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Carolyn, and this channel is all about true crime, mystery, and anything abnormal. Highly recommend subscribing because this channel is definitely a vibe. So today's story is about a little girl who comes back from the dead. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but let me tell you the story because it's wild. In December 1997, a fire broke out in a home in Philadelphia. In the home was Luz Cuevos, and right before the fire had broke out, she had heard an explosion in the upstairs front bedroom, which is the bedroom her 10-day-old baby, Delimar Vera, was sleeping. She also had two other sons who were in the home. The two young boys were safely removed from the home. When Luz went upstairs to try to save her 10-day-old daughter, she opened the door and the crib was empty and the bedroom window was open. And it's December in Philadelphia, so it was very cold, and she knew she had not opened that window. So she began screaming someone had stole her baby. Moments later, firefighters arrived and dragged Luz out of the home. And the whole time she was screaming that her baby had been stolen. Luz had suffered burns to her face and her hands, but the only thing she cared about was her baby. So the fire investigation began. When the fire investigation was done, it was determined that the cause of the fire was a space heater that was plugged into an extension cord. And that is how the fire department determined that that is what they believed started the fire. Now, they were never able to find remains of Delimar's body. They had believed that her remains had been incinerated in the fire. But Luz, the mother, she knew different. And police and fire investigation, there was, in their opinion, nothing else to investigate. But Luz, she never gave up. She knew that her daughter was still alive and someone had stole her. Even though no one believed her, she never gave up hope. And she had such a strong mother's intuition. And your intuitions are so strong. And she just never gave up hope. And the fact that they could not find any remains, I kind of did a little research into cremation because I was curious if remains in a house fire could actually be completely incinerated. And from the research that I did, I guess when you're cremated, it doesn't completely incinerate your entire body. So when someone's being cremated, they obviously go through the crematorium and they burn them until most of their body is gone, but there's still bone fragments that are left over. And I guess they like pound them down until they're powder and then mix them with the rest of the ashes. So I'm not sure if maybe because she was only 10 days old and she was so small, so her bones would have been so small, that's what led them to believe that the fire had incinerated all of her remains. But regardless of what the police or the fire department or anyone believed, because they all just thought that Luz was having a hard time accepting that her daughter had died, that she was in shock, and she believed that she was alive because she didn't want to accept that her daughter had passed away. But it didn't matter to Luz what anyone said. She knew her daughter had not died. She had her mother's intuition telling her her daughter was still alive. She had no idea what had happened to her, but she knew that she had been stolen. And for 6 years, no one believed Luz. And I can't even imagine how hard that would be to go through, to know with your own eyes that you saw she was not in the crib. So she knows, like the baby was 10 days old. There's no way the baby could have got themselves out of the crib. She knew her daughter had not died in that fire. And it's so heartbreaking to know that she went so many years with no one believing her. But 6 years later, everything changed. In January 2003, Lutz and one of her sons attended a family birthday party for another child in the family. Now, Delimar's father is Pedro Vieira. At this birthday party was his cousin by marriage, and her name was Carolyn. Not me, totally different Carolyn. But Carolyn was there with her daughter, who was named Aaliyah. Now, when Lutz saw Aaliyah, as soon as she saw her face, she instinctively recognized this little girl who she had never met before. The biggest thing that stood out to her was dimples that Aaliyah had. And Delimar, when she was a baby, she had dimples. And Lutz, she was an absolutely brilliant woman. She saw this little girl and she just believed that this was her daughter. But probably because no one had believed her for the last 6 years, she probably didn't have much faith that anyone would believe her now. And what she did was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love this woman. So apparently she was a fan of watching crime shows. So she knew that if she wanted to prove that this little girl was in fact her daughter, she needed to get some of her hair. So what she did was she pretended that Aaliyah had gum in her hair, and she pulled out a few strands of her hair, wrapped it in a napkin and put it in her purse, and then just kind of acted natural for the rest of the party. And everyone ended up getting the shock of their life when the DNA test came back and proved that this little girl was in fact Delimar Vera. So how had this all happened? How did Carolyn end up with this little girl? As I had mentioned, Carolyn was a cousin by marriage to Delimar's father. So on the day of the fire, Carolyn had come by the home and Pedro Vieira, the father of Delimar, was fixing her car. And while he was fixing her car, she was in the house talking with Lutz. Lutz had said the interaction was a little bit strange. At one point, Carolyn had just abruptly left the home, and then she came back. And when she came back, she claimed she had left her purse upstairs. So Carolyn goes upstairs, supposedly to get her purse. And this is where we don't know exactly what happened, but it's assumed that she opened the window to put the baby outside and then set the fire and then came downstairs and left the house. Because Carolyn told Lutz she was going to get her purse. She goes upstairs. She's not up there for very long. She comes back down and just leaves the house. And minutes later, Lutz hears this explosion, and that was when the fire broke out. There are some people that believe that Carolyn could not have done this on her own, that some people suggest that someone helped her, but no one else was ever charged with this crime, just Carolyn. And because it was never considered arson, there was no investigation. Carolyn then took this baby home and told everyone that it was her baby and raised her for the next 6 years. So obviously, once they prove that she is in fact Lutz's daughter, she will be returned to Lutz. But psychologists were very concerned with how this process would go because this little girl had been raised for 6 years believing Carolyn was her mother, and she was now going to be told that in fact she was not her mother and Lutz is your mother. The other concern they had was that Lutz spoke mostly Spanish. She knew very little English, and Delimar had been raised in an English-speaking home. So there was a little bit of a language barrier, and these were things that concerned psychologists. But from all accounts, Delimar being returned to her mother went very smoothly, and she went on and everything went really well for that family. Now, Carolyn, she's a sketchy woman. There are a bunch of different theories. So let's talk about how did she explain all of a sudden having this baby. So Carolyn had 3 older children that she had had from previous relationships. She then got into a relationship with a man named Andrew Moore, and he wanted to have a baby with Carolyn. Some of Carolyn's family claims that she was no longer able to have children. I don't know if she had a hysterectomy, what exactly happened, but in a lot of sources it claimed that she was no longer able to have children. So when she announced to her family that she was pregnant, everybody was kind of confused about how she could be pregnant. Other people believe that a few days before she had kidnapped Delimar, she had given birth at home and the baby was stillborn. So she kidnapped Delimar almost in a way to replace the baby who had passed away. Probably what is most believed is that Carolyn had had a condition in which a woman can believe that she is pregnant. And it sounds a little bit crazy, but there is a condition where a woman can so strongly believe that she is pregnant that she'll actually start showing as though her stomach's growing, as though there's a baby in there. They'll start having pregnancy symptoms. And this is all like a psychological condition that they have where they really truly believe that they are pregnant when in fact they are not. So when I was reading about this condition, I had heard about it before, but I didn't know that much about it. But when it came up in the story, I was like, hey, I need to know more. Like, how exactly does this work? And this led me to an absolutely insane Dr. Phil episode. So on this episode, he had 2 women who believed that they were pregnant. Now, one woman claimed she was 18 months pregnant. So I don't know how, she really believed she was 18 months pregnant. So she's obviously asked, like, you must know that, yeah, sometimes pregnancies do go a little bit longer. They don't go 9 months longer. Like, it's not double time. Nobody is double time in a pregnancy. And she explained this, saying how her body was just different than everyone else's. And the baby just needed to grow longer. So, I don't know. There was also another woman on the show, and like these women had ultrasounds done, and they were shown there is no baby in your uterus. Like had been given ultrasounds showing there's no baby inside you, but their belief, it didn't deter their belief at all. They still believed this just as strongly. And the one woman explained that her body was different than most other people's bodies. And her baby was just growing in an area that babies don't normally grow. And I'm like, okay, like babies have to grow in uteruses. That's like, it doesn't work any other way. Your baby has to grow in your uterus. That's where babies grow. They don't grow in your liver. She didn't claim that the baby was growing in her liver, but it was just wild. And then one of them claimed that like the ultrasound technology, their body was too advanced for these ultrasounds. And it just sounds like crazy and ludicrous to you and me, but it's believed these women, they really do have this psychological condition that can cause this. Now, this condition is extremely, extremely rare. So it's not something that is very common. And when it comes to Carolyn and people believing that she had this, I don't know. I kind of am not sure, because knowing that she was in this relationship with a man who wanted a baby, and if she had had a hysterectomy, I don't know what type of procedure she had, but it was said that she couldn't have children. So to me, could she have decided, okay, I physically cannot have a child, but I want to keep this man, so I'm going to provide him a child, and then I don't know, Delimar was born and she saw this as an opportunity. Whatever it was just horrific and horrible. But Carolyn had actually been able to get a birth certificate in the name Aaliyah, because she claimed that she had given birth at home alone and had this baby. Police started investigating everything they could to find out about Carolyn. And in 1996, she had worked as a town clerk. She had been accused of stealing money from them. And then she burned the building down to try to destroy any evidence. Now, in that case, there was no one in the building. No one was hurt, but she was charged with arson. So it seems Carolyn, and not me Carolyn, her Carolyn, is a bit of a fire starter and commits crimes and then sets it ablaze thinking she'll get away with it. And it worked for 6 years. And it's so scary to think about that if Lutz had not had the brilliant idea to get Aaliyah's hair, if she had just gone to police and said, I saw this girl and I believe she's my daughter, nobody, I don't think, would have believed her, and a DNA test probably never would have been done. So it's Lutz, yeah, she's amazing. She's an amazing, brilliant woman. I'm just like so impressed with her. And don't mess with a mama bear, because a mama bear will take you out. So Carolyn ended up serving 9 years for kidnapping and arson, and she was released in 2013 with the condition that she was allowed to have absolutely no contact for the rest of her life with Delimar and all of her family. And it's not known where she is or what she did after she was released or what she's up to now. But Delimar is now an adult and she is doing absolutely amazing. She's married. She has a son of her own. She works at a rental company. She works in the HR department. And it just seems as though she's had a really great, amazing life. So that is the amazing story of Delimar Vera. And there was a movie made about her life. I think it was called A Little Girl Lost. I didn't see the movie. When I kind of read what the movie was about, I don't know how closely it is to the actual story, but there's a movie out there if you're interested. I believe it's called A Little Girl Lost. I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you if it's accurate or anything, because obviously I haven't seen it. So that is today's story, and it was a great one. And I know that this is probably going to end up being quite a short video because there's not a lot of information really to go over. And I know you guys prefer longer videos. So just to let you know, I'm working on the video for next week and it will be much, much longer. But I just absolutely was so fascinated with the story. I knew it would be a short video, but I still really wanted to do it. So I hope you enjoyed the happy ending. That doesn't sound right. I hope you enjoyed the happy ending to the story. Not get your pervy minds out of there. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. If you have any suggestions of stories that you'd like me to do, please leave it in the comments of any of the videos, and I will see you in the next one.